I collect a lot of books, and I actually have an interest in getting into eventually selling them. I'm not at that stage right now. I'm clearly focused on...
We have enough books to start selling now.
Well, point though is that...
we have vaults of books
law
right
practice, stuff like that, obviously, raising kids, the idea that I can just sit around and indulge in books all day is a luxury.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's something to what I wanted to be able to point out this evening. Books have kind of gotten, literally discarded in many respects in our society. Don't get me wrong, there's still the big Barnes & Noble, and you can go onto Amazon and get books, but it's qualitatively a very different experience now. You can get onto Audible and listen to books now. There's so much out there that basically takes you away from this kind of good old-fashioned experience. But because people are walking away from this, bookstores are closing. People are kind of liquidating collections. Mm-hmm. People pass away. The kids, grandkids don't understand value the materials that their parents have collected, grandparents have collected, their historical significance. And these days, a lot of the time, they're rarity. So I wanted to kind of make a bit of a pitch, if you will, for taking a little time to start to educate yourself on books. I brought just 3 examples. Mind you, I do have literally thousands of books.
Oh my God, he's not kidding.
But
I got to stay with something real quick, though. He also, about 5 years ago, before you were you've always had books, but you've not been into the search and the quest and all that, made fun of me because I still prefer books over the tablet. Can't stand reading a book on a tablet. It's not the same, doesn't feel good. I like a book in my hand, the smell, the feel of the paper.
Let's qualify that slightly. What was the context I was talking about? Law materials.
I can't even remember.
Yeah, that was the
context. I'm not reading this on a tablet.
When you're dealing with legal reading where I just need certain cases, certain types of information, having the digital version and being able to do searches through PDF documents of certain terms and the like.
I agree with that.
Hugely
I don't
powerful.
think that's what it was.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. You were because I was like, I just need the digital version. And you're like, no. We're getting the books too.
Oh yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't just buy the digital version.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So
no.
I think that was the
because
feature
they're about
that I
the
was
same
in.
price at that point. They charge you $300 for the digital, and they throw the book in. Yeah, I want the book.
Well, at a minimum, though, I think that was the context. I've been a fan of books for a very, very long time, and I've had certain books in my life now, 30 plus years, that I still tote around with me and have been all over the world with me. But regardless.
So what'd you bring?
Well, I'm going to go over to the specifics, but the main point is start eyeballing books. It is my contention that in a few years, people are going to want to vary their experience. Having the digital is wonderful, but as Tamara's described, something tangible and the patience that's required to sit and read and review materials, it forces you to kind of pause in your day and center yourself in a way that I think people will recognize there's real merit to, just given how kind of chaotic day-to-day life can be for people. So the idea that you can make it almost like a meditation to go get some material, sit down with it, think about it, and enjoy what you're reading in almost a contemplative manner, I think is something that will become in fashion again.
It's leisure time.
So get the books now while their market value is way down and cheap, and people will literally just give them to you. Educate yourself on what you do have, and then you'll hit a point where I think you'll appreciate your diligence and foresight, because I think the value of these things will actually start to go through the roof, because how many bookbinders have gone out of business? How many paper companies that specialize in the kind of paper that you need for a quality book?
Show that one for a second. Show the interior cover of that.
Yeah.
The marbling in that paper.
All of this is
the
just
gold
like
touches.
literally a craftsman's sentiment. Now, this one, and it's interesting, is a Bible, but I have a slew of Bibles. That's not the interest here. This one is kind of interesting because of who owned the Bible. And I have a series of Bibles like this. This was from the personal collection of Walker and Fred Kirby. Now, for most people, that may not mean anything. Go and look who these folks are. These are people that are literally titans of industry in this country, and their family.
Kirby vacuums?
No. These folks, they and I pulled up the Wikipedia. So this is about who owned this Bible. And this is just a revised standard version. It's my preferred version, but that's not what I'm here to plug. It was more so who the owner was. People dump family Bibles all the time. And then you start seeing who was the family, whose Bible was that. And
that doesn't sound like that. I mean, that sounds terrible. The family.
Oh, that the family wouldn't care. But for people who love American history,
yeah, this is true.
It's a gold mine because there's a lot of information contained in these things. But to give you a sense, the Fred Kirby, he was specifically the CEO and chairman of a company called Allegheny Corporation, which is New York Stock Exchange, 400. These are major players today in the insurance industry and the like. But to give you a sense, the Allegheny Corporation, this is out of Wikipedia, which is kind of funny.
He's reading it on a tablet.
Well, I've not met the book form of Wikipedia yet.
This is true.
So bear with me. But the company was incorporated in 1929. And just to give you a sense, that there was a bankruptcy that occurred shortly afterwards. And then it fell into the hands, the holding company, of a gentleman named Robert Ralph Young and Alan Price Kirby, the father of Fred Kirby. To give you a sense, Young, Mr. Kirby's business partner, used the company as a vehicle for his vendetta against the J.P. Morgan bank interests. Literally, J.P. Morgan, who had financed the Van Sweringens and managed to defeat them and the Vanderbilts' interests in 1954's proxy fight for the New York Central Railroad. I guess after that fight, Mr. Young committed suicide, and necessarily Mr. Kirby kind of carried on the legacy of the company. Needless to say, once the Kirby family was involved, they grew the company. They had a financial division that they sold off to American Express. These are like huge players in the last century, and really dynamic players even to this day. Their family still is involved with major like I said, insurance interests and the like. This was his, and I guess evidently his brothers. I'm not familiar with Walker particularly, but this is Fred Kirby's personal Bible. And this is all a first edition of the Revised Standard Version. And with the Revised Standard Version, you had two, they finished their Old Testament in 1952. The New Testament was finished in 1946. This was made in America. This is truly a first edition version, but more importantly, who owned it, I think, is the fun part. You can pick up Bibles on eBay or other sources for next to nothing.
Hey, Tracy, how are you? See? Yes. She pointed out that she has her Nana's Bible.
Sure, but here's one that you can pick up on eBay. People wouldn't know what to look for. You buy it on the cheap, wait, let history move forward, and then all of a sudden, books like this become these just rare little gems and finds.
Yeah.
Another one here. This one's very cool. This one's actually been rebound. It's called Anecdotes of the American Revolution. The gentleman who wrote this kind of has this very interesting history, and I have a little note on that. The gentleman, this book itself was first published in 1822. This is the first edition, but the original cover deteriorated because, again, we're talking 1822.
Look at these pages there.
Yeah, this is from 1822 when it was published. But then somebody who was amazing, and this was done clearly in the late 1800s, rebound it. And there's little mildew marks and things like that, which to me just add a ton of character. But you can see this is literally from the 1820s, where the gentleman, Mr. Alexander Garden, he became a state senator in South Carolina. Now, why is this interesting? You get a lot of literature that focuses in on the Civil War, for example. A lot of history, and you can get books and photographs, and a lot of kind of, I guess authorship has gone into people writing memoirs about their experience in the Civil War. And there's a dearth of material out there that you can hunt up and find. What is interesting about this is imagine someone writing their Revolutionary War memoirs. That's what this is.
Wow.
So it's somebody who fought in the Revolutionary War, who took the time...
American Revolutionary War.
What did I say?
I'm asking. The American
Revolutionary War. Yes, the American Revolutionary War. There we go. See, anecdotes of the American Revolution. And then sat down and talked about who he fought with, where they waged their battles, who were generals that he worked with, who were soldiers that he thought expressed exemplary character. It's this amazing, amazing read that, he took the time to put out there. But it's something that, clearly when you go through this, you can see that this has seen the centuries. There are water stains in it, but the quality of the print, the quality of the paper, it's resilient to time, even when time is not always generous with you. So, books like this, they're rare finds. But if you know what to look for and you educate yourself a little, these hold value. This will never lose any value whatsoever. When you know what to look for and you're patient with finding these types of books, it's only going to go up in value.
Before you go to your third, is there a favorite book among your collection in terms of, value or great catch or...
This one actually may kind of be in that realm. This one's very intriguing. It's called Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time by a gentleman named Carroll Quigley. This is actually a first edition. What's intriguing about this book, you hear a lot these days about, a new world order or a global cabal that is trying to shape global politics, one world government, all of those types of subjects. This gentleman, he was given access to documents and records. And I think I'm trying to recall, I don't know if he got involved with the folks who did like Trilateral Commission and a lot of these big international organizations. Let's see, I'm trying to think the full breadth. But needless to say, what he did is he got access to source materials for these types of big multinational organizations that you hear a lot about, and there's a lot of kind of conspiratorial discussions about them. He was given an opportunity to go into their source materials, and through reviewing their source materials, then proceeded to write an epic tome about the efforts. This is over 1,300 pages. The efforts of these organizations to shape global politics. And who was doing it? The interests that were involved with it. We're talking banking, government. We're talking about corporate structures that were set up, and various organizational strategies to help coalesce organizations throughout the world around a central vision to shape global economic, social politics, and the like. So it's this very, very deep analysis.
What's the time frame of this book?
This was written, the copyright, mind you, again, this is a first edition of it. I think it was 1950s, or was it by the 60s that it was released? No, 1966. When this was put out, everybody was kind of interested, thinking that it was kind of an academic centerpiece, an important retrospective over, the first half of the 20th century. The dilemma is that because he was so thorough, the people who he actually was referencing were horrified to have their activities disclosed, most of whom were still alive. So these people who saw themselves as prominent figures were basically their dirty laundry was being aired out in a way that he didn't think was a problem because they gave him access. But then they didn't realize how thorough and effective he would be at documenting it and articulating the nature of their activities, that as soon as this hit the publisher, and this was published by Macmillan, all publishing ceased.
Oh, wow.
And they ripped it off the shelves. They didn't want anybody to have this material anymore.
Wow. So obviously some copies made it through.
Some copies made it out. Now, he himself, being horrified that his publisher just eviscerated and took away any and all copies they could get, he financed himself to kind of do a second run with what his limited means were. And you have to kind of know what to look for between the bona fide first editions, which were put out by Macmillan, versus his efforts to kind of just get his book out there. Because he was very proud of his work.
I'm sure.
He was
all
very
that work,
proud
1,300 pages
of
of
the
writing.
fact that he was so effective at kind of articulating, and he was a true believer.
Yeah.
He believed in this kind of globalized government sentiment. So he was like, what are you talking about? This is great. The world needs to know about our efforts to control the planet. So either way, very cool story, very interesting book. Who's going to know that, something like this is sitting in libraries throughout America and is still out there? But if you don't know what to look for and you've not taken your time to kind of learn a little bit of history, and this is very topical, the things that were going on, through World War II, subsequent Cold War, there are players who were behind the scenes. This is the
scene,
story
the setting,
of
right
what
there.
happened behind the scenes.
Wow.
So it's very cool stuff, very unique. And again, I think will become more historically significant with time. So here, just in these three books, and I'm a big fan of American history, Revolutionary War, Titans of Industry, Let's Control the World, perspectives. And I'm not somebody who's in the business, but I care about history. And so when you read history and you think about history, do basic things like look up, if you watch a documentary and you hear the names of interesting people, you've got the tablet, you've got the smartphone, go and look and say, okay, they mentioned this historical figure. Is there a book about them that somebody wrote, a biography? Did they have an autobiography in which they themselves discussed their work, their education, their own perspectives? And then always look for the first edition. Hugely important. Look for those first editions and then take care of them and learn about them. Because the cool thing is like any market, I'm a fan of American history, so I'm kind of a buff for that. There are different interests that are out there in publishing and in books in general. And so you find the people that are interested in those things. You can build relationships with them. And when people who want a book are aware that you have one, there's sometimes no lengths that they'll go to try to secure it. So you don't have to have a huge collection. Just have a good collection. put the time in now where getting these things are relatively cheap because nobody cares about books anymore.
And inform your children.
Yeah.
Our
my
children
kids
are well versed on what stays and what they parse out.
Do not get rid of this one. It will only get better. So, you have those conversations, but, think about it for the kids. Here we're taking our kids and telling them the importance of old-fashioned books.
Yeah, we're not like this family that just let this one go.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, now it could be that, maybe this gentleman had so many things, and when it came to his estate, because he passed away in 2011.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't that long ago. And the family's down in North Carolina, but this kind of stuff was popping out from, I guess, the estate. And, there's nothing wrong with me legally purchasing a book, but when you know the history, all of a sudden it takes on so much more significance and fun. So that's my tidbit about books and why I think you should take an interest in them. Go to your libraries.
The time is so right.
Yeah,
now.
Go to the libraries. Go to the
used bookstores.
Yeah, used bookstores. Because often, folks don't really appreciate what they have, but if you have an eye for it, you can pick up great deals, keep them, treasure them, and know that they're going to be a great store of value for the long term.
Very good.
So.
Well, I think that was it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Yep, one more live stream in the bucket.
Is this number
that
4?
What they say? No, in the bag. Isn't that what they say?
In the bag.
Yes, this is number 4.
I think this is number 4. So it is going to be important that we get feedback.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do, we are up over 100 subscribers now, which was kind of a little mile marker for us. Tell other people. Let them know, subscribe. And if there are things that you'd like us to discuss,
Tell
topics.
us. Put it in the comments, either on the YouTube or the Facebook. Let us know. What are you interested in?
Absolutely. But I think with that, we're good for tonight.
Very good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
We'll see you.